I'm 91 years old, and I almost lost my marriage, not because we stopped loving each other, but because we stopped showing it. There were no screaming fights, no dramatic goodbye, just quiet distance growing between us. I thought love was understood. I thought after so many years, words and gestures were no longer necessary. I was wrong. Love that isn't expressed begins to feel like love that no longer exists. And one day, I looked at the woman beside me and realized she felt alone, even with me in the room. If you're married, listen carefully. This is how love quietly fades. They end because of 100 small silences. I am 91 years old. When you live this long, you begin to see patterns. You notice that the loud things in life are rarely the most dangerous. It is the quiet things that slowly undo us. People think marriages end because of betrayal, because of shouting, because of one terrible argument. But in my long life, I have learned something different. Most marriages do not collapse in a single moment. They fade, and they fade quietly. Not with anger, but with silence. It begins in very small ways. One evening, one partner says, "Can we talk?" The other replies, "I'm tired, maybe tomorrow." Tomorrow comes, but the conversation does not. At first it feels harmless. Life is busy, work is stressful, children need attention. You tell yourself it's nothing, but what you don't see is that something small has just shifted. A door was gently knocked on, and it was not opened. That moment becomes the first silence, then another and another. Soon, you stop knocking, because you learn the door will not open. And this is how distance begins, not with shouting, but with unspoken feelings. In my marriage, there was a time when we were both very busy. I was working long hours. She was caring for family. We stopped sharing our inner worlds. We still spoke, of course, about bills, about groceries, about what needed fixing. But we stopped saying things like, "I'm scared," "I feel lonely," "I need you." We assumed love was understood. We thought, after all these years, we don't need to say everything. But silence does something dangerous. It creates stories in the mind. If you don't say, "I'm overwhelmed," your partner may think they don't care. If you don't say, "That hurt me," your partner may believe it didn't matter. And when feelings are not expressed, they do not disappear. They settle. They turn into quiet resentment. Resentment is not loud in the beginning. It does not scream. It whispers. It whispers. They don't understand me. They don't notice me. It's useless to explain. And so you explain less and less, until one day you look at the person beside you and realize you do not know what they are carrying inside anymore. That is the tragedy. Two people can sleep in the same bed for 30 years and slowly become strangers, not because they stopped loving, but because they stopped speaking. Silence feels peaceful on the surface. No conflict, no drama, but peace without connection is not real peace. It is avoidance. When couples stop having difficult conversations, they believe they are protecting the relationship. In truth, they are starving it. Love needs expression like the body needs food. Without it, it weakens. I remember one winter evening very clearly. We were sitting in the same room. No argument, no tension, just quiet, too quiet. And I suddenly felt something heavy in my chest. Not anger, not hatred, distance. I realized I did not know what she had been thinking about for weeks. I did not know her worries, her dreams, her fears. And that frightened me more than any argument ever could. That night, I broke the silence. I said something simple. "Are you happy?" She looked surprised. Then she said something that changed me. "I don't know when we stopped talking." That sentence felt like a mirror. We had not fallen out of love. We had fallen out of conversation. And conversation is the bridge between two hearts. Without that bridge, even strong love cannot cross. Small silences build walls. You skip one hard talk, then another. You avoid one apology, then another. You stop saying, "Thank you." You stop saying, "I appreciate you." You assume they know. But assumptions are dangerous in marriage. After many years, love must be spoken intentionally. When you are young, love feels automatic. When you are older, love is maintained through effort. You must choose to ask, choose to listen, choose to respond gently, because silence grows by habit, and habits shape destiny. I have watched many couples in my lifetime. The ones who lasted were not perfect. They argued, they disagreed, but they never let silence grow too long. They would sit at the kitchen table late at night. They would say the uncomfortable things. They would risk tears instead of distance. That is courage. Silence feels easier. Conversation requires vulnerability. To speak your fear is to admit weakness. To admit you were hurt is to lower your guard. But marriage is not sustained by pride. It is sustained by openness. If you are married, I ask you gently, when was the last time you truly asked your partner, what is on your heart? Not while looking at your phone, not while half listening, but with full attention. If it has been a long time, that may be the first silence. And silences, if left unattended, multiply. I am 91 years old. And if I could leave you with one warning from a long life, do not fear arguments, fear indifference. Fear the day when you no longer feel the need to explain yourself. Fear the comfort of emotional distance, because that comfort is not safety. It is slow separation. Most marriages do not shatter. They slowly dissolve, like ice melting in warm water. Quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day there is nothing left to hold. Speak before silence becomes normal. Ask before assumptions grow. Listen before resentment settles. Because it is not the one big mistake that ends most marriages. It is the 100 small silences we thought did not matter, and by the time we notice them. I am 90 years old. When you live long enough, you begin to understand something very simple about the human heart. We do not just want to be loved. We want to be heard. There is a quiet difference between the two. Love is a feeling, but being heard is an experience. It is the experience of knowing that your thoughts matter, your fears matter, your small daily frustrations matter. When someone truly hears you, you feel seen. And when you feel seen, you feel safe. But the day that safety disappears, something begins to fade. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly. In many marriages, the fading does not begin with anger. It begins with interruption. One partner starts to speak, the other finishes their sentence, or dismisses it. You're overthinking. It's not a big deal. You're too sensitive. These words may seem small, but they land heavily, because what they really say is, your feelings are inconvenient. Over time, something changes inside the person who feels unheard. They begin to measure their words. They think before speaking, then they speak less, then they stop. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they no longer believe it will be received. I have seen this happen countless times. A wife stops sharing her worries because she feels judged. A husband stops expressing his fears because he feels weak. Both believe they are protecting themselves. But in truth, they are withdrawing. And withdrawal is the beginning of emotional distance. In my own marriage, there was a period when I thought listening meant waiting for my turn to speak. I would nod. I would say, I understand. But in my heart, I was preparing my defense. I was not truly hearing. I was reacting. And she felt it. One evening, she said to me very softly, "You don't listen to understand. You listen to respond." That sentence stayed with me, Because she was right. There is a difference between hearing words and hearing meaning. To truly hear someone, you must slow down. You must put aside your pride. You must resist the urge to correct. Most of us think we are good listeners, but listening requires more than silence. It requires presence. When your partner speaks about their bad day, they are not always asking for solutions. Sometimes they are asking for empathy. When they share a fear, they are not asking you to fix it. They are asking you to sit with it. And when that empathy is missing, they feel alone. Loneliness in marriage is not about physical absence. It is about emotional absence. Two people can sit side by side on the same couch and still feel miles apart. Why? Because one feels unheard. I have seen couples where everything looks perfect from the outside. No shouting, no visible conflict. But inside, one partner has already stopped trying to be understood. They live in quiet resignation. They speak about safe topics. They avoid vulnerability. They stop saying things like, "I'm afraid," "I feel insecure," "I need reassurance." Because every time they tried, it was brushed aside. And slowly, they learned, it's easier to keep this to myself. But marriage cannot survive on convenience. It survives on connection, and connection requires listening without defense. The moment you feel you cannot speak freely, something precious is lost. You begin to censor yourself. You hide your sadness. You swallow your disappointment. And those swallowed emotions do not disappear. They build, they harden, they turn into quiet walls. I once knew a couple who had been married for over 40 years. They rarely argued. People admired them. But one day, the wife confessed something heartbreaking. "I stopped telling him how I felt 20 years ago." She did not say it with anger. She said it with calm acceptance. That calmness frightened me, because it meant the fading had already happened. When someone stops fighting to be heard, it does not mean they are content. It often means they have given up. Being heard is not about agreeing. It is about acknowledging. You can disagree and still say, "I understand why you feel that way." You can see things differently and still say, "Your feelings make sense." That validation is powerful. It tells your partner, you are not alone in this. In long marriages, the danger is familiarity. We begin to assume we already know what the other person will say. We interrupt, we dismiss, we simplify. But people change. The person you married at 25 is not the same at 45. The fears evolve, the dreams shift. If you stop listening with curiosity, you stop knowing the person beside you. And when you stop knowing them, intimacy weakens. At 91, I can tell you this. The happiest couples I have seen are not the ones who avoid conflict. They are the ones who listen deeply. They ask follow-up questions. They sit in uncomfortable conversations. They create a safe space where feelings can land without judgment, and that safety keeps love alive. If you are married, ask yourself gently, does my partner feel safe speaking to me? Do they hesitate before sharing something sensitive? Do I respond with understanding or correction? These small patterns shape the future, because the day someone feels unheard is the day they begin looking inward instead of outward. They start handling emotions alone. They start building a private world inside their mind. And when two people live in separate inner worlds, the marriage begins to fade, not dramatically, not visibly, but quietly. I am 90 years old, and if I could offer you one piece of wisdom about love, it would be this. Listen as if your marriage depends on it, because it does. Put down the phone. Pause the television, look into their eyes, and when they speak, do not rush to solve, do not rush to judge, just receive. Sometimes the most powerful sentence in a marriage is, "Tell me more." When someone feels heard, they feel valued. When they feel valued, they feel loved. And when they feel loved, they stay emotionally present. But when they feel unheard, they begin to disappear quietly. And once that disappearance becomes habit, bringing them back becomes very difficult. So guard this carefully. Guard the space where your partner feels safe to speak, because once that space closes, the fading begins. I am 91 years old, and if there is one confession I can make without shame, it is this. There was a time in my life when I almost lost the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because of betrayal, not because we stopped caring, not because love had disappeared, but because we stopped showing it. Love is a strange thing. In the beginning, it is loud. It is visible. You say, "I love you," often. You hold hands without thinking. You notice the smallest details. But over time, love becomes assumed. You believe it is understood. You think, after all these years, they know how I feel. And that is where danger quietly enters. Because love that is not expressed begins to feel like love that no longer exists. In long marriages, routine can slowly replace romance. You wake up, you follow habits, you handle responsibilities. Life becomes practical, and practicality, while necessary, can quietly suffocate tenderness. I remember a period when I was deeply focused on providing. I believed my hard work was proof of love. I believed my presence in the home was enough. But I had stopped saying the words. I had stopped offering small gestures. I had stopped noticing her effort. In my heart, I loved her. But in my actions, I had become distant. And love that is only felt internally is invisible to the other person. One evening, she said something simple. "You don't look at me the way you used to." It was not an accusation. It was sadness, and it pierced me. Because she was right. I had grown comfortable. Comfort can be beautiful, but it can also create carelessness. When you no longer fear losing someone, you sometimes stop protecting what you have. You stop complimenting. You stop reaching for their hand. You stop expressing gratitude for ordinary things. You assume they know. But people do not feel loved by assumption. They feel loved by action. In marriage, love must be renewed, not once a year, not on anniversaries, but daily. A small touch, a sincere thank you, a moment of undivided attention. These are not dramatic gestures, but they are powerful because they say, "I still choose you." Many couples believe love fades naturally with time. I do not believe that. I believe expression fades. And when expression fades, the other person begins to question. They wonder, am I still important? Am I still desired? Am I still seen? Even the strongest person needs reassurance. We never outgrow the need to feel valued. I almost lost my marriage not in a storm, but in dryness. There were no loud fights, no dramatic exits, just a quiet emptiness growing between us. We functioned as partners, but not as lovers, and that difference is profound. A marriage can survive conflict, but it struggles to survive indifference. Indifference is cold. It is the absence of warmth, and warmth is what keeps love alive. One day, I realized something frightening. If she stopped trying tomorrow, I would feel it deeply. But had I noticed how much she was already trying? Had I acknowledged her patience, her sacrifices, her loyalty? Or had I simply expected it? Expectation without appreciation breeds distance. When effort goes unnoticed, the heart grows tired, and a tired heart eventually stops giving. I decided that day to change something small, not dramatic, not theatrical, small. I began saying thank you for everyday things. Thank you for cooking. Thank you for waiting up. Thank you for understanding. At first it felt unnecessary. After all, we had done these things for decades. But I saw something shift in her eyes. a softness returned, because appreciation restores connection. Then I began doing something even simpler. I started looking at her fully when she spoke, not half listening, not distracted, fully present. That presence became a bridge. Slowly, warmth returned, and I realized something important. Love is not sustained by memory. It is sustained by maintenance. Just as a home requires cleaning, just as a garden requires watering, marriage requires attention. If you stop watering, the plant does not die immediately. It wilts slowly, and sometimes by the time you notice, it is already fragile. People often say, "But we don't argue, we're fine." Peace is not proof of passion. Silence is not proof of satisfaction. You must ask yourself, when was the last time I expressed love intentionally? When was the last time I made them feel chosen? After many decades, it is easy to become casual with affection. But casual love feels weak. Intentional love feels strong. At 91, I can tell you this: no one regrets showing too much love, but many regret showing too little. The tragedy is not in losing love. The tragedy is realizing it was still there, but hidden. Hidden behind routine, hidden behind pride, hidden behind distraction. If you are married, do not assume they know. Tell them, show them, touch their shoulder when you pass. Sit closer than necessary. Say their name gently. Protect the small gestures, because those small gestures are not small at all. They are reminders that love is alive. I almost lost my marriage because I believed love was permanent on its own. It is not. It is a living thing. And living things require care. The day you stop showing love is the day your partner begins wondering if it is still there. Do not let comfort become neglect. Do not let routine replace tenderness. Because one day, if you are fortunate enough to grow old like me, you will look back. And you will not remember the bills you paid. You will not remember the errands you ran. You will remember the warmth, the laughter, the touch, the feeling of being deeply chosen. So show your love. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. Because love that is shown survives. Love that is only assumed quietly fades.